Monolith, the developer of Shadow of War and Shadow of Mordor, they finally put their next game, Wonder Woman, on their official website. We see it right here. It's like looping the teaser trailer. Do we all remember this? This was Game Awards 2021. Finally, Shadow of War came out in 2017. At the same time as Assassin's Creed Origins. At that time, we had Odyssey, Valhalla, Mirage, and we're getting Shadows in like a few months. Still, we have not heard anything about this game. We do have some info on it, but them finally updating, of course, their website is good news, I think. It might mean that they are finally going to talk more about it. So, they already had some official info on their website before this. So let's quickly go over that. In development by Monolith Productions, creator of the critically acclaimed Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and the sequel Middle-earth Shadow of War. I love how they say critically acclaimed Middle-earth Shadow of Mordor and the sequel. I mean, I liked Shadow of War way more than Shadow of Mordor, but yeah, it was not critically acclaimed because they were stupid enough to force the loot boxes in. Oh man, like take me 2017 when everyone was like trying loot boxes even in single player games. Damn. So yeah, the Wonder Woman game is a single player open world action game. Will introduce an original story set in the DC universe and allow players to become Diana of Themyscira, I think, right? I always forget how to properly pronounce that. In the fight to unite her Amazon family and the humans from the modern world. Powered by the Nemesis system. Like, that's of course the crazy part. That they, of course, I think kind of have the patent on it. So other people cannot use that amazing. Like, the Nemesis system is, like, it's so far ahead of other games. And it's kind of what AI is kind of becoming now. Like, that was already, that these enemies felt like alive. They remembered your interactions. Did you like burn them? Then they still had scars and they were like, oh, I'm gonna get revenge. Or if they killed you, they will talk about that as well. I love the system. And every game that has it, I at least want to try it out. And even if Wonder Woman is maybe not my like favorite series ever or whatever, I do think it's could be really cool in this setting. Gamers will forge deep connections with both enemies and allies. So I do think that's like an interesting point. Seems like they will be expanding because, of course, in Shadow of War, it was really focused on making your own like army of orcs. So that is like probably one of the new things they're trying. That your allies will be really into the Nemesis system as well as they progress from a heroic fighter into a proven leader. I think this sounds pretty awesome. Actually, it looks pretty awesome too. Oh, of course, this is on the DC Cinematics Reddit. We had some concept art that appeared. Of course, it's concept art. It's not like what the game will actually look like, but I do think it looks pretty awesome. The quality is not great, but we see, of course, the lasso here that she will be using. Next to humanoid enemies, we will, of course, be fighting creatures as well. I mean, the world can look stunning in this game. Next gen only, current gen only, I should say. And we got some better look at the... Like, it's gonna be... Like, that was kind of my... And that's why I liked Shadow of War more. Is that they actually had more diverse locations. I just never really liked the sort of brown, gray Mordor area. And seeing like more like snow, I think, was in Shadow of War as well. This is the complete opposite. It's kind of like Guerrilla going from Killzone to Horizon, right? They can finally go way more colorful. And I do think this looks promising, at least. So, let's see what else we have. Because it's not all, like, positive, though. 5 months ago, we had Greg Miller on a podcast saying that the Wonder Woman game by Monolith is in a troubled state, according to an insider source. And I don't think we actually had to hear this from him to kind of probably think that, because why is it taking so long, right? 2017 was when Shadow of War came out. Sure, they did some DLCs as well, but say they started in 2019, early 2019, after all the DLCs were out. That's still like 5 years. They announced it in 2021. Now, when they announced it, it was probably... Maybe they were doing something else. Like we know, for example, Warner Bros. Montreal, who of course did Arkham Origins. They were toying around with a Suicide Squad game first. Then of course that did not work out. Then they started working on Gotham Knights. Maybe that was the case for Monolith as well. They were doing something else before they settled on Wonder Woman. Still, again, I hope the Game Awards trailer is released and then we see the game and it's like, okay, and it's coming out very soon. That's what Warner usually does. That would be really awesome. Like, this has to launch in 2025, right? Otherwise, it's like 8 years later. That's crazy. That's crazy. And Greg Miller, that's also worth noting. He did say, though, that every game kind of goes through their troubled, like, period. And some games just come together at the end. So it's not like a uncommon thing for a game to be in a troubled state. Of course, it might be worse than the typical game development cycle, and looking at the time that it takes them to make this game, you could argue that that's probably the case. We also had this news, because that's, of course, again, we know the Rocksteady is helping with the Hogwarts Legacy DLC. Gotham Knights developers are helping on Wonder Woman. So it really seems, and they want to do that more and more, that the Warner Bros. Games division is also, making sure that their studios are helping with more imminent things. Like Wonder Woman, if you think about it, is probably the next big Warner Bros. Game, right? After that, it's gonna be Hogwarts Legacy 2. We know NetherRealm, of course, did Mortal Kombat 0 or 1. They will be off the board for a long time. They won't have their next game ready for a long time. And they are still doing DLC, of course. Rocksteady will also take a very long time. We did learn, though, that they are maybe doing an Arkham Asylum remake. So that is interesting. Like, they will probably need 2 years for that, I would say. Or maybe 3 years, tops. Still, though, this game is going to be next. And after that, they will have a huge gap. But because after Wonder Woman, again, Rocksteady, Warner Bros. Montreal, they did Gotham Knights. Again, they are helping here as well. They are probably doing another DC game. That will be a long time. Gotham Knights was 2022, right? So, yeah, that they are still very early as well. So, yeah, it's going to be this, and then maybe Hogwarts Legacy 2 as the game they will launch after that, which is crazy. But they need this to succeed for sure, and I hope it does. I hope it does. Now, we also have another interesting wrinkle to this story, and that is Cliffhanger Games. Because actually, some people also left Monolith. Cliffhanger Games, a new EA studio developing a single-player action-adventure game based on Marvel's Black Panther. Blah, blah, blah. Led by Kevin Stevens, Monolith Productions. So basically, a very higher up person at Monolith left to create their own studio. Probably brought some Monolith developers with him as well to work on the Black Panther game. So I'm curious who is still left at Monolith to make this Wonder Woman game, but I'm hoping for the best. Here, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor, along with veterans from top franchises. So I have high hopes for this Black Panther game. I really hope it delivers, but yeah, first we get Wonder Woman. I'm curious to hear what you, of course, think about it. Rocksteady is now a support studio. Again, after they, of course, launched Suicide Squad, which did not go well, they have a team that is still doing the post-launch that they already promised for that game. Then they have, their plan was, before Suicide Squad came out, we're all gonna keep supporting Suicide Squad, because it's gonna do well, and blah, blah, blah. Obviously, that did not happen. So then at one point, you're like, okay, we did promise a lot of content. What is the what can we make work here? Like, what's the bare minimum of people that we need to at least fulfill our promise? And then you suddenly have maybe 70% of the studio who's like, and what are we going to do? They did lay off some QA people, sadly, but yeah, they did not have any work for them because they did not need as many people testing Suicide Squad content as they initially thought. So then they were like, okay, more imminent, we have Hogwarts Legacy DLC. Okay, you go work on that. And then, of course, they also have to think of the future. What's the future of Rocksteady? And yeah, going back to single player games makes sense. A new Batman game makes sense. But yeah, let's get some like money first. And that's where I think the Arkham Asylum remake is probably coming from, because that seems like a pretty safe bet. That game did not age as well as the other titles. Maybe a lot of newer gamers never played it, while it's of course brilliant. So I think that makes sense.